And it's my privilege to introduce to you Mr. Keen Butcher on the Board of Trustees of the Foreign Policy Research Institute, a distinguished veteran of the North African and Italian campaigns, having served with the 28th Infantry Division and the 34th Infantry Division with honor. And sir, it's my privilege to welcome you to the podium.
That's very difficult to follow. And my comments today are about today's military. It's a different world, but we are using the same words. I'm referring to reports we receive on a daily basis concerning our military forces, particularly the land contingent, but applicable to air and sea as well. In all American history, even during the Indian Wars, the enemy was generally identifiable as to individual, location, organization, and uniform. Also true in large part for the early aspects of this war. The power to destroy, however, from Hiroshima to today's IEDs, has drastically and permanently changed the destroy-defend equation in innumerable ways, increasing the effectiveness of the suicide bomber and his ilk. And our military, from the individual to the organizational, is adapting. Of course, that is not easy and seldom enough in a timely manner, plus coping with constantly higher levels of expectation. Now, in case you're hanging on my every word, I'm going to distribute this when I'm through talking with some additions of pictures somewhat similar to you saw up there. These comments are directed at what we read. This is a volunteer war, thank goodness, for the capacities and skill of the participants is at a proud high. They carry much heavier and complete burdens as a norm. The independent judgments are exercised at much lower levels. The material is more complex, useful, and productive, whether communication, firearms, vehicles, or myriad supplies. And it is still tough going. 2 generations ago, most of the population was familiar with some branch of the armed forces. At the end of World War II, there were 12 million men and women in American uniform out of a population then less than half our present size. Can you imagine 24 million today in uniform with a military budget of 38% of the gross domestic product against today's 4%? Military veterans are very few in the U.S. Congress or in educational institutions, and it shows. We lost 292,000 military killed in World War II, 34,000 in Korea, 48,000 in Vietnam, 148 in the Persian Gulf, about 3,000 civilians on 9/11, and a little more military than that in the 5 years in Iraq. Every loss is a tragedy, but life still requires all of us to take unavoidable chances, whether it's on the highway or in the bathtub, except nowadays we take showers instead. Reorganization is never as soon or as complete as desired. Even many of today's terms have different meanings. To the best of my knowledge, a brigade 2 generations ago was probably 2 regimental combat teams, 7 to 10,000 men, and today it might well be half that, with many times the flexibility and firepower. Military terms are used to describe command structures, but vary in usage. They may not have the same things inside them as you are familiar with or was talked about last year. Even war correspondents have difficulty describing what they try to report. We need to understand that a company stationed in Outer Mongolia, and we have military installations in all sorts of places like Outer Mongolia, and compared to Fort Dix, it's not a proper comparison, nor is equipment the same. Even today's helmet, for instance, has about 50 parts to make it more safe, more comfortable, and just as handsome. The Jeep is bigger, stronger, better equipped, and more rugged, with greater capabilities. This applies to every piece of military equipment, and needless to say, everything is more expensive and is so treated. Weapons and communications are particular areas where the technology and the capacities increase annually. We have been and are being attacked globally by an elusive enemy within civilian populations whom we are attempting to protect. Our enemies take advantage of our restraints and utilize our technologies against us. It is not easy, and leaving Iraq too soon will promptly multiply the risks and catastrophes at home and abroad. Because events are not presently going well does not change that. My thesis is simple. Being a soldier today is very different from what it used to be and totally unlike the experience of most of us. Do take that into consideration. Now, if you'd be good enough to pass down these things, Nancy, would you start them down? You don't have to ask me anything about them, but it might be informative, particularly the latter pages. Thank you.